Thanks, Daniel, for that as well. I think personally it's achievable, but it's more difficult when your quality of life is much higher than others. And that's something that we all need to bear in mind as well. That the higher you want your quality of life to be, the more challenging it is to achieve financial independence. Reason being, one, it's extremely difficult to earn money. It's money doesn't come easy to any of us. You have to work hard for it. I mean, unless you go and rob a bank or something like that, you literally have to work hard towards it. But money goes out very easily because of the quality of life we all want. You want a new car, maybe every 3 years or every 5 years, you buy a new car. You want your kids to go to the best of schools within the band that you are in. So for some people, it's Lincoln International School in Ghana that's like $10,000 a term. To others, it's GIS or Roman Ridge School that's around $3,000 a term. To others, it's one of the top local schools, not international schools. That is about 3,000 cedis a term. And yes, still to others, it is a public school that is 500 cedis a term. But you realize that the higher you go with the path in terms of quality of life, the more you are actually spending, the more your expenses go up. And that's one thing that we all need to understand. One, earning money is something that we all need to work towards to improve. And you can do that in many ways, changing jobs, changing your job, finding something that pays you higher, improving your education so you can move up the chain in terms of your career, starting a business on the side, doing multiple jobs, running 2 or 3 jobs at the same time, just to make an income. It's something that we can all do to improve how much we earn. But the more difficult one is ensuring that what we earn doesn't move out of our hands or slip out of our fingers very easily. I know people whose salary is not enough for them to live on a monthly basis. So they end up taking loans to help support their quality of life. And that in itself is a challenge as well. It is very important to realize one thing. The money you earn is yours to keep. Whether you take a portion of that to buy a shirt, to buy food, to do whatever, it's still your money. The moment you part away with the money, it's no longer yours. And even if you take the money to buy a car, yes, you have a car, but a car is a depreciating asset. Unless, of course, it's a taxi business or an Uber business, and the car will be an earning asset in that case. Whatever you take to use money to buy is something that is reducing how much money you are keeping for yourself. So the first concept is a percentage of whatever you earn, you have to keep for yourself. And it's extremely difficult to do. I remember when I started on this journey of trying to save money, there were months that I couldn't even save 5% of my salary because the expenditures that I had were so much that my salary was not even enough to take off the expenditure. Okay, but I told myself that at least 10% of whatever you earn on a monthly basis, you need to be able to save that towards your financial independence, towards yourself to achieve financial independence. Okay, so the first thing is drawing up a personal budget. Okay, and if you're with your spouse, if you have family commitments where you're taking care of your parents, maybe your siblings are in school and you're supporting them, whatever it is, you need to first and foremost ensure that you yourself are being taken care of. And the first thing to do that is to ensure that you are financially stable. And believe me, when you have money in the bank, that is your money in savings, it gives you a lot of mental stability, a lot of personal thoughts and free will to think about other things where you know you have a certain amount of money saved. Okay, so start with 5% of your monthly salary if you are in the situation I found myself in years ago, where your expenditures are significantly higher. But try and at least get to 10% of your monthly salary that you are saving on a monthly basis. Okay. Now, it's a difficult thing, but it's also important to draw up a budget which controls how quickly you let money out of your fingers or move out of your account. Okay, 10% you keep for yourself. If you are Christian, religious, you pay tithes, you give charity, whatever it is, you move out another 10% towards that purpose. You keep maybe 30% towards living expenses at home, towards living expenses. Home keep, maybe you have rent that you need to take care of. Make sure you have a budget. And if you draw up a budget and realize that your expenditures are more than 90% of your income, then you need to do a personal audit of your expenditures and ask yourself a question. Are certain things important, or can they be deferred? Because it's still your money. The more you part away with your money, the less of it you keep. And it's a very strong principle, but I think that it's also, the truth is financial education is something that our educational system doesn't teach. Okay, and more often than not, we learn this thing the hard way. But if you're able to draw up a personal budget, it would go a long way towards helping you save 10% of your salary. The next trick is this. Anytime you get an annual increase in salary, maybe you get a pay rise or you get a bonus or whatever, you do not spend that. You actually try and save as much of that amount as you can, because then that helps you boost your savings quickly. So personally, I started by saving 5%, and then when the salary was increased on the annual increase, I will keep that and try and keep my expenditures at the same level. Maybe transport prices have gone up a bit, so you increase your budget allocation towards transport prices. But you increase your savings from 5% to maybe 7%, and then from 7% maybe to 10%. I know someone who is able to save 30% of their monthly salary at this stage, purely from building this habit over the year. They are at a stage where they are able to save 30% of their monthly salary, and it goes purely into investment. So I'll pause here on this principle on managing your budget, and then we can discuss if there are any questions around how you go about with a budget, how you go about with unexpected expenditures. There's one line in my personal budget which I call do that. It is for the off things that you don't expect, such as within the month the car breaks down, or you get a flat tire, you need to go and buy new tires. Those things that you don't budget for, that happen out of the blue. Even create a budget line of maybe 2% of your salary towards those things. And if it doesn't happen in the month, you save that money anyway. If it happens, you have some amount of budget towards those unexpected or unexplained expenditures. So I'll pause here on the concept of having a budget, and then we can discuss that as well. Any questions, please? Okay, one other thing I just want to highlight in your budget is you also need to have a budget line for chilling. Life is not all about work, save. So at least 5% of your budget, you need to reserve that for chilling. And it's also important because it helps you psychologically when you know that you are saving towards a holiday outside the country, or towards maybe a holiday at Aqua Safari or whatever, wherever you want to go to. it's something that is equally important in your personal financial management, because even if you don't end up spending that money, it's still going to be in your savings, part of your savings pool as well. And it's not money that you've used for maybe a car loan or for buying an extra pair of shoes that you don't necessarily need today. You can wait another 2 or 3 months before you have that extra pair of shoes. So that's one thing you can also do as well. Now, any questions at this stage, please? Okay. So then the next.
I have a quick question.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. So my question is, talking about savings and all the things that you've outlined. I want to know if in Ghana, the banks, do they have like financial advisors that like call customers or like invite customers in to talk to them about some of these products? Because like, I mean, over here, I mean, my banks will call me when they see that I have like some money sitting somewhere. They'll call me and ask me, hey, can you put this one into this savings? I mean, to this account that will earn you this amount of money every month? Or, I mean, do you have any plans for this money? What they intend to do with it? They try to get you into, I mean, saving more or doing more. And there are some things that, I mean, have products like vacation accounts, like you say, you need to have some money allocated for chilling. There's something like, I mean, saving towards your kids, college investment and stuff like that. So I want to know if Ghana they do things like that.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that question. The short answer is yes, but in terms of advertising those solutions, I don't think the banks do enough. What I know occasionally happens is some banks would go to a company and do a presentation to the staff of the company on their products and solutions that they have to offer. But I don't think it's as aggressive as you would find in the more advanced market. The other bit as well is most banks tend to focus on high net worth individuals, so people who have balances above a certain threshold. So if the balance in your account is small, they are unlikely to be calling you. But if the balance in your account is large, then you would have a private or a personal banker who would give you a call to find out about what your investment solution interests are and the various solutions that they can share with you. But speaking on that as well, I'll just like to highlight a few things in terms of rules on investment. One, you've worked hard to earn your money. You've equally worked hard to save a percentage of that money. Don't just pack that money in any investment that you think works for you. You need to do some amount of research first. It's extremely important because I've seen people lose their savings because they haven't done basic research. Basic research. There is no how would I put it? There is no person on this earth who will give you money for free. There's nothing like easy revenue or easy returns on investment. There's just risk vis-a-vis returns or rewards based on the level of risk you're taking. For example, there have been two business streams that were started in Ghana that collapsed. One was on fish farming, where the company came out and said, give me your money, and in 1 year's time, I'll pay you 100% in return on your investments based on fish farming, the profits of the fish farming. Now, someone called me on that business, and I asked myself one thing. If someone is able to pay me 100% return on fish farming, what is the percentage of profitability the person is making? And in that regard, I called a few friends who were involved in fish farming, took a drive to Akosombo, where I saw a number of fish farms, spoke to some of the people, asked the questions on risk, and I realized one thing. you can actually buy the cages, buy the fingerlings, buy the feed the fish up to a certain size. But once the fish gets to a certain size, the villagers come in the middle of the night, go on top of the cage, and harvest the fish and steal the fish. So your risk is significant if you are not able to secure your cages to ensure that they are not stealing your fish. And sometimes they even swim under the sea and open the cage from the bottom to steal the fish from the tilapia from the cage. Now, that company who was offering 100% return ended up collapsing after, I think, a certain time because they couldn't sustain that business model. A lot of people lost money just by putting the money in the business without doing adequate due diligence on what the risks were and how the risk was being passed on or being managed or mitigated. The other one is a simple one, which is Men's Gold. When Men's Gold started, a few people approached me to ask questions. And I said, the model of Men's Gold, in terms of their business model, based on what they're advertising, exists within the bank. If you tell someone, I will buy your gold, I will take money from you, buy gold, then lend the gold to another company, and then based on the lease that you've lent on the gold, you will actually make a return on the back of and a return on the back of the gold that you've leased. That business model exists. It works. Banks do it, where even central banks lease the gold they hold in their reserve accounts to other players on the market, and then on the back of that, they earn their return on it. But if you go on Google and ask for and search gold lease rate, the return on Google is 0.25%. So if globally all the big banks are leasing gold and paying 0.25% at the global rate, and someone says, I can lease gold from you and pay you 10% a month, 120% a year, it has to click that there's something off. But lots of people didn't do the research. They didn't even understand the business model that Men's Gold was proposing. They just went ahead and put money in Men's Gold. And we've seen similar schemes in the past. We've seen R5, we've seen Piram, and all those other schemes where educated people, believe in Men's Gold, you have people from Bank of Ghana who had money in Men's Gold who lost their money. You have people in Ministry of Finance who had money in Men's Gold who lost their money, purely because they didn't take time to understand the risks and do their own independent search. So I would first and foremost say that you've worked hard to earn income. You've equally worked hard to save some money. Do additional work in research before you put your money in any form of investment. Now, there are different types of investments. The simplest investment you can do in Ghana is use your money to buy government bonds, not treasury bills. Treasury bills pay 12%, 13%, and they are for short-term investments. You need the money after 90 days, 3 months or 6 months. You can keep the money in treasury bills. But there's better value if you buy government bonds. For example, if you are saving towards your child's university education, you want your child to go to London School of Economics or Harvard, and every month you save 100 Ghana cedis, or you save 1,000 cedis every month towards that purpose for the next 10 years. You can use that money, the 1,000 cedis, to buy a government bond, a 10-year government bond that gives you a yield, a coupon of 20% or 19.5%. And that's risk-free money. Now, even though you are getting the money in cedis, two things happen. One, you are earning let's say even 20% a year for the next 10 years. Every month you are saving 1,000 cedis, buying the same bond, 10-year bond. You're earning, you're saving money towards that goal of your kids' education fund. You buy the government bonds, and whatever coupons are paid every 6 months, you reinvest it in the same government bond at 20% coupon. Okay. Yes, you would have currency depreciation over the years. Let's assume that on an annual basis, currency depreciates 5% or even 10% in a year over the next 10 years. It means you'd have earned on average between 8 to 10% dollar return over the period as well. Okay, which is a good level of return. And it's risk-free in the sense that you are not going to have to chase any other person except government of Ghana for your money. And government of Ghana can print cedi. So they can pay you your money back. They can afford to pay you your money back. Okay. Any other business venture that you want to start or do or undertake, whether it's in farming or converting your hobby into business or whatever, needs to be able to pay you above that 20% interest, which is your risk-free rate. If not, it is not worth doing that business. It's not worth starting a car business if you are not going to earn more than the 20% business return that government of Ghana bonds can give you over a 10-year period. Now, if you are comparing yourself to where the 10-year bond yield is, which is around 20%, 19 to 20%, you are better off than comparing yourself to the treasury bill rate of 12%, because there's a huge 8% differential there that makes sense for you to invest in government bonds. I see a lot of offshore investors, a lot of offshore pension funds, hedge funds, and asset managers who invest in Ghana government bonds purely because they are able to make a huge return on investment in dollar terms. Okay. Whereas I see Ghanaians keep their money in dollars. You buy dollar and keep it in dollar, and you don't earn any interest on the dollar that you bought. And then after 10 years, if someone holds cedi investment and another person holds dollar investment, and the dollar is paying you 0% for 10 years, and the cedi is paying you 20% for 10 years. At the end of the 10 years, the person who's put their money in cedi would have probably been able to convert all the cedi amounts into dollar and have an equivalent return of about dollar plus 8% return, even if you factor in currency depreciation. So clearly, this is something that we all need to take our time and make an assessment of and understand. You can also buy equities. MTN recently issued equities on the market, shares on the market. You can buy. MTN is the largest dividend payer in Ghana at the moment. Clearly, at the end of every year, you get some amount of dividends on above your equity, which gives you some income as well. I know people who have retired who live off dividends that they get from shares that they hold in MTN, in SanChat, and in other dividend-paying shares that are listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Now, buying government bonds, you can buy from any bank. Just walk to your bank and say, I want to buy government bonds. The minimum amount that you can invest in buying a government bond is 1,000 Ghana. So if you have 1,000 Ghana cedis, you can go to your bank and say, I want to invest in Ghana in government bonds. How do I go about it? And your banks are obligated to help you go through the process. Okay. You can also go to any of the asset management companies, Data Bank, IC Securities, IC Asset Management Company, SAS Securities, Black Star Brokers. Any of the asset management companies can also help you buy government bonds as well. If you want to buy equities, you can go through any of the brokerage companies that are in country. If you go to the Ghana Stock Exchange website, or you go to Securities Exchange Commission, their website, you see the list of registered and licensed entities that you can deal with. Okay, a little research will protect your money. remember, your first priority is protecting your money, and then the second is earning a return on the investment that you have. There are other things that you can also do as well. You can buy a house which you rent out, or you can build a house or build apartments to rent. But again, I always say that whatever you are doing, you need to factor in how much value you are getting above the risk-free rate. If you are building a house, for example, you need to check how much rent you can get out of the area. If you buy a house for 250,000 cedis and the rent for that house is 500 cedis a month or 1,000 cedis a month, that's 12,000 cedis a year. In 10 years' time, you would have earned 120,000 cedis. Yes, there'll be an annual adjustment because of rent increases over the period. But let's just assume 120,000 cedis is what you'd have earned. How much did you use to buy that property? And what is your rent yield? Rent yield is basically your rent income divided by the value of the property you have. How does that compare to keeping your money in government bonds for 10 years? Would you be better off? Yes, with a house, you have the capital gains because the value of the property would increase over time. But you can only crystallize the capital gains when you have sold the property. So if you are investing for cash flow, then you may be better off buying bonds than buying a house because you will be earning maybe 20% from the bonds, and on the house, you'll be earning maybe 10% on the house. But if you are investing with the aim that in 10 years' time, you probably sell the house and use it as your children's education fund to pay for their school fees to go to university, maybe in Harvard, then you want to benefit from the capital gains as well. But again, if you are doing property investment, you need to also be mindful of location. I know someone who bought a house 10 years ago in Wager at the same time that he had the option of buying a house at similar value at Depth Traco in Tema. The house in Wager has stayed at its same value over the last 10 years. The value has not increased, whereas the equivalent house in Depth Traco has multiplied 3 times. So if you are doing property investment again, location is very key. It's something that you need to know as well when it comes to investing. So I'll pause here on the rules of investing and then open it up for questions. If anyone has questions or comments, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Thanks. Yes, Elvis, please go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Quick question. I was listening. Actually, I was trying to find out a bit more about the issue with kids' education funds and stuff like that. Personally, I don't live in the country now, but I've got kids in Ghana. I've been looking for avenues, like something to do that would secure my kids' future. But I didn't want to leave that in someone else's hands. I was trying to, if I could do it personally myself. But is there a way I could get that thing done with me personally being the trustee, that I can know the money is safe? If I put, say, 100 a month, or I know that money is safe for the next 20 years. Is that possible?
Correct. Yes, there are two ways of going about that, though.
Right.
And it's one of the last points I know I wrote about in the principles, but I'll touch on it now, which is setting up a trust fund. You can set up a trust fund legally in Ghana, where you are the beneficiary of the trust fund, and your children are equally beneficiaries, but they are only able to take out money for the purpose of education. And it's a legal setup. Our legal framework recognizes it as well. You can set it up. And what that does is that if per chance you are to pass on or anything happens to you, your children's education is still secure. It's secured in the sense that the law, even if you appoint a trustee, the trustee is obligated under the terms of the trust to only withdraw money and pay for school fees or pay for your kids' education. They cannot withdraw the money and go and pay for their your kids' clothing or rent or any other purpose unless you have specified it in the terms or terms of the trust deed. You would need a lawyer to help you draft the trust deed the way you want to draft it. And then on the back of that as well, you would then need to appoint trustees for a purpose. Now, the trustees can be either a legal entity, a legal company, an audit firm, family members who you trust. But again, they still cannot withdraw the money for any purpose other than what you specified in the trust. Now, the other thing you can do as well, which is separate from a trust deed, going through the chain of a trust deed, is basically one other thing you can do is basically to set up funds for specific purposes. For example, you can have you can ask your bank to open an account for the purpose of saving towards your child's education. I have a colleague at work who's done that with DataBank, where for each of his 4 children, he has 4 separate accounts that have been set up at DataBank under his name, but also referencing the child's name. So it's, let's say, Emmanuel/John, Emmanuel/AC, Emmanuel/this. And every month he has a standing order that moves money into that account. And that account is within DataBank, it's a money market fund. So it only invests in government bonds and in government securities, in treasury bills. It doesn't invest in equities, it only invests in bonds. And it offers a return of maybe 18% or whatever it is. That's 18% or whatever the return is. And you get monthly statements from DataBank on how that is performing. So that's another approach towards an educational fund for the kids, which has a specific purpose. And basically, sometimes managing the school fees all the way through to secondary school is a little bit easier. Is the university fees that are lumpy. So you can actually have it targeting the university fees or the tertiary fee, and then you manage the primary and secondary level education in terms of on an ongoing basis, while saving towards the big lumpy fee. So Elvis, if you have any follow-up question or comment, please unmute yourself and you can ask that as well. Okay, in that case, I'll move on to Millicent. Millicent, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Okay. Hello? Yes, can you hear me?
Oh.
Okay, hold on, Millicent. Elvis, please go ahead. Huh?
Yeah, sorry. I had one more question I was asking. Just before I asked my question, there was this issue you were talking of somebody who had the opportunity to own a property in one in the Krakow, and then the other one was in I don't remember anyway. And you said within a few years, the one in the Krakow like tripled. Meanwhile, the other house stayed where it was.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Question: how would somebody know? Let's say maybe I have a land in Kaswa, I have one in Kwabenya, I have one in Tema, and then one in let's say Sphinx. Maybe I'm just assuming I bought all at the same price or similar prices. How would I know which one is going to go forward, like triple, double, quadruple in the next few years? And then how would I know which one is going to stay stunted? So I'd concentrate on my investment on the ones that I'm very sure it's gonna give me what you call it enough profit or something, or enough value.
Okay, all right.
You get my question?
Yes, I got the question. It comes down to doing a little bit of research. Okay, I realize one thing, that we tend to buy property or land based on where we are comfortable, what we know, without necessarily doing research. So one other thing is, people tend to buy land based because it's cheap, or they're only selling it for 5,000, but it's about 2 hours drive from Tema, or they're only selling it for 10,000 cities, but it's after Amasaman. You see, the key thing with property investment is asking yourself a certain question. One, you are doing it as an investment, not just to acquire property because you want to acquire it. It's an investment, and hence you need to do a bit of research. Research needs to encompass a number of things. How well developed is the area, or what are the factors that will drive development within that area? What is the proximity of that area to certain facilities or amenities, such as a major road or major intersection, that would drive economic activity in that enclave? And then also, another question to ask is, what is the neighborhood, and how likely is that neighborhood going to push the price up? For example, if you come into the center of Accra itself, you can have two properties available which are less than a kilometer apart. One in Nima and the other in Kanda. But if you are to put, and I keep telling people that the cost of building is the same regardless of the location that you put the building. The cost of buying cement will be the same. The quantities that you put in the building structure will be the same, whether you're building in Accra, or you're building in Kwabinya, or you're building in Dawenya, or wherever you're building. Okay, yes, there'll be some variations in cost because of transport and everything else, but fair enough, the cost of building is largely the same. So the location is really the key factor here. And you need to do a bit of research. Now, if you pick a place like Wager, okay, at the time, my friend was buying a house in Wager. The area had not been developed. He was looking at something that was fairly, it wasn't a laid out neighborhood, whereas Detraco is an estate. It's a laid out estate. So when you look at what has happened over the last 10 years, value in the gated communities have gone up, whereas the single house, which had neighbors who still have undeveloped properties around, would not have gone as high in terms of value. Okay, so these are some of the things as well. Are you better off developing a house in an area where you don't have neighbors yet, or you have lots of uncompleted property, or you're better off developing in an area where there are other developed properties available and other projects that are ongoing that will increase value? Maybe there's a mall about, there are some high-end schools within the neighborhood. These are things that you need to check in terms of a research to help guide you in making the right decisions when it comes to property. I also tell people this now: don't buy land cheap. It's a mistake I made personally. It's a mistake I regretted. Don't buy land if the land is cheap. Sometimes it's what you can afford, but I know someone who said he's better off staying in his father's boys' quarters, which is in the middle of town, and taking time to buy and acquire property in town rather than going to build out of town and then having to drive 2 hours into town to get to work. So that's something you need to also bear in mind as well, because location, when it comes to property investment, is always key. Location, location, location is a basic principle when it comes to property investment. If you get location wrong, the investment will lose value. Okay. Before you come back, let me move on to Millicent and then take a question from her as well. Hi, Millicent. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, Jojo. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. My question has to do with, I think you're mentioning the fact that if you want to do long-term investment, it's good to rather do government bonds. I know we have the treasury bills. I know we have the fixed deposits. I know we have the bonds and the rest. I know there's so many investments. For me, and then you also talked about the dollar, I mean the foreign currency. For me, you made mention of something I want you to go a step further to explain. You were saying that when you buy a government bond for like 10 years, and then the same amount of money, you use the same amount to buy a foreign currency for 10 years. Obviously, the foreign currency is not going to attract any interest, which I know is not true. Why? Because when you buy a foreign currency, or you open an account to the foreign currency, certainly will attract some kind of interest. Now, the question is that interest plus the time that is going to take for the money to, I mean, in Ghana, dollar rate was British pound or whatever it is doesn't stay stagnant. It moves. I mean, it grows. So if a dollar is 1 Ghana cedis, the next 10 years, obviously it's not going to be 1 Ghana cedis. It's going to be more than the 1 Ghana cedis. So suddenly, if I take the same amount of money in the next 10 years, I'm still going to get a little interest plus the exchange rate, which will now be more. You understand? I don't know if you get where I'm coming from.
I get you. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'll give you 2 scenarios, okay? You and both of them would be on Ghana. So you have let's say you have $200,000, which is and you want to buy which you hold in dollars, $200,000. Okay. You can buy the government of Ghana Euro bond, because the minimum amount for buying government of Ghana Euro bond is $200,000. But some banks do allow you to buy maybe $50,000 equivalent, depending. You need to talk to your bank to find out. Now, let's assume you buy the government of Ghana Euro bond and you earn 8%, because that's what the yield is for 10 years. So that's an option that exists. What I'm saying is, don't buy dollars and leave it in the account earning 0 interest, because that is worse off. Okay. Now, if you buy government of Ghana Euro bond and you earn 8% for 10 years, and I buy government of Ghana local currency bond and I earn 20% for 10 years, the difference, the variable factor here is what is the level of currency depreciation over the 10-year period on the government of Ghana local currency bond as compared to the dollar bond. Now, if currency depreciation on the local currency bond is 5%, averages 5% a year for the next 10 years, okay, then 5 plus the 8 would give me 13% equivalent. So in dollar terms, you would have earned 13%. In local currency terms, I would have earned 20%. That gives me an uptick of about 7% return, by a net benefit of 7% return in me keeping my money in local currency, running the currency risk. Now, if per chance the currency depreciation over the next 10 years averages 10% per year, 10 plus your 8 is 18%. If I still earn my 20% per year, I would probably be fairly average with you, in a sense, plus or minus 2%. You and I are the same level. So the key question you need to ask yourself in terms of investing in local currency bonds vis-a-vis investing in Euro bond is, what is your expectation of currency depreciation over the next 10 years? Do you expect currency to depreciate on average 10% a year over the next 10 years? Or you think it would average 5% a year? If it will average 5% a year, then keeping your money in local currency has more value than keeping your money in foreign currency. But you see, this conversation is critical and it's crucial, because it comes down to the first point I made, which is you have to do your research. You have to do, you see, you've saved your money, you've worked hard for your money, you've saved it, now you need to invest it. And investing it, you need to do a certain amount of research to ask yourself, where am I better off at? Okay, I know people who keep their money in dollars and they earn 2% a year on the dollar deposits that they keep with the bank. And I keep my money in government bonds and I earn 20% a year. At the end of the year, at the end of the first year, my 100,000 cedis would have given me 120,000 cedis in value. Whereas your dollar equivalent would have given you, maybe if it's $100, it would have given you $102. Okay, it's not the same. Time value of money is not the same. And yes, currency risk exists. Currency depreciation is always a factor. The key thing you also need to remember about investing in Government of Ghana bonds is you don't need to hold it to maturity. You can buy a bond today, which is giving you a yield of 20%, and sell it in 6 months' time, and you'd have earned your return on it. Yes, there is some value change when you buy and sell the bonds before maturity. But that value change will mean that maybe rather than earning 20% interest, for the 6 months, you earn 18% interest or 17% interest. It's better than keeping your money in 6 months treasury bills and earning 13%. So I prefer, and I always recommend people to look at investing, first understand investing in bonds, and then also ensure that your timing of bond execution is good. You can buy a 2-year government bond at 16, 17%. You can buy a 5-year government bond at 17, 18%. You can buy a 10-year bond at 8, 19, 20%. So you need to do your research to see where you are, but also equally do your research between investing in local currency vis-a-vis investing in foreign currency, vis-a-vis investing in property or in equity. You need to do a bit of research across all, because there is no perfect investment. Government of Ghana bonds, local currency bonds, or dollar bonds is considered your risk-free level. So for me, whatever business you want to get into, if you're not earning above these levels, it's not worth it, because you're not earning a risk premium above the risk-free level. So that's something you also need to take into consideration as well. Okay. So I'll pause here. If there are any other follow-up questions on investing, please. Just unmute yourself and then go ahead and ask the question. Okay, then I'll continue quickly. I'm mindful of time. There's another point I want to highlight, which is loans. I personally believe that feel free to borrow. If you can borrow at low interest costs, that's good. But remember, try as much as possible to borrow for investment and not for consumption. And also be very mindful of high interest loans, such as high interest credit cards. Okay, use credit cards wisely. Try and avoid using credit cards for long-term investments, long-term expenditures. Rather save towards those investments so that you minimize yourself. Also learn to use insurance. Comprehensive insurance for your car is very important. Home insurance against fire, against flood, against robbery. These are things that you should have to help improve your financial situation as well. I always say one thing: you've worked hard to build your house. You've saved money, you've built your house. Don't let a fire come and burn all your money when you don't have insurance in place. So please try as much as possible to get some amount of insurance for yourself as well. Also, opportunity for investing always exists. It always comes. Just make sure that you do enough research before you move on with the investment. Also, risk share, risk participate. For example, you want to do a chicken farm, poultry farm, or goats, or whatever animal rearing, or you want to do pineapple farm. If you have other people who are interested in it, join hands with them, you share the risk, you share the profits. In Ghana, we have lots of single owner businesses who struggle because they try to go on their own and they struggle with challenges that come their way as well. And then the last point is on estate planning, which we touched a bit on the trust deed when Elvis asked this question. You can have a living trust or a will to help with your family when you are not around. I keep telling people, don't assume that you live for long. Please put a will together and change and update your will every 5 years as and when circumstances in your life changes. Maybe you build a house, you buy a new house, update the will. You have a new child, update the will to include the child, update your trust deed to include the child as well. You get divorced, update your will. A lot of women don't do wills because they assume the men will be around to take care of the children. Please, women equally have property that they need to pass on to their children. Do a will. Even your personal effects, your clothes, your watch, your shoes, your bags, whoever you want to have those, you can capture those in your will as well. Have a medical power of attorney, assuming you have something that has rendered you unable to act or think. You need someone to be able to make decisions on your behalf. You need to have something in place for that. Have a financial power of attorney. Have a schedule for gifts. I know someone who died of COVID in January. He didn't leave a will. Even before he was buried, a family member came and said, oh, he promised to give me his Mercedes-Benz, so I want the keys to the Mercedes-Benz. Even at the first family funeral meeting to discuss how they're going to bury the guy, someone was asking for the keys to the Mercedes-Benz. If you have a will in place or a will which shows who should get what, as even a gift from you when you pass, please put those things in place as well. It's all part of financial planning. It is never too early to put a will in place. And don't think that when you have a will, it means someone will kill you. I beg. Even if they want to kill you, they'll kill you without a will. How much more with a will? If you have a will in place and they kill you, please, at least your family will be protected when you die. I have met people whose careers and whose lives took a nosedive when their fathers died and their aunties and uncles threw them out of the house and did not give them any of their father's property. Even to the extent that even their own school fees, they struggled with it because the father did not leave a will in place. And the worst thing is to be dead and gone and to be looking back at your family from wherever you are and realizing that they are struggling because you did not make a will in place out of either fear or pride, or you always said, tomorrow you do it, you procrastinate, and tomorrow you do it. A will is a living document. Always remember that every 3 to 5 years, you can update the will. It doesn't cost a lot to do that as well. So I'll end here, and then if there are any questions, we can pick up and discuss that as well. Thanks. Contributions and comments are equally welcome, please. Or if there's any topic that you think I have left out and you want me to touch on, please highlight that as well. Yes, Bobby, please go ahead.
Jojo, I would like to say that I would like to thank you so much for the session, and I thank the executive as well. It's been very insightful. I think I have picked a lot from this, and I want to thank you so much for your time. So basically, that's what I want to put across. I believe that most of the people here have also benefited immensely from this. I had a couple of questions to ask, but then as others asked the questions, I think you have dealt with them. So if anything comes up, I'll come back and then ask. But thanks so much for your time. It's been great.
Thanks, Bobby. Happy to always share. Any comments, contributions, questions, please? I also shared a few points on how to turn a hobby into a business. I think I'll just run quickly through that. One, just make sure you're passionate and committed to the project. Test the concept first before you dive head on into it. I know someone who quit their business, their job to start a business when they are not even done their due diligence on whether the business is profitable or not. Write a business plan. It's more to guide your decision making and your investment plans around the business as well. Build a brand. Perfect your elevator pitch, which is basically if you meet someone on the wayside, how would you describe the business you are into? Create an online presence. Develop a marketing strategy. Find your customers. Don't wait for customers to come to you. Go looking for your customers. Watch your finances, track your expenditures, your sales, your profitability, and then get someone to mentor you as well within the business process. Yes, Musti, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Jojo, thank you so much. And thank you for the information that some of us will be carrying along throughout the rest of our lives. My question is this, in terms of this insurance policy, is that have educational fund for our children and all that, against the government bond that you mentioned, are we better off doing that directly or doing that with them?
Okay, all right. So I would again say that research is always good. If someone comes to you with an insurance policy, you need to ask yourself, what is the benefit of that insurance policy? I've seen insurance policies that say that you pay a certain amount for the next 10 years. And if nothing happens to you within those 10 years, you get your money back plus interest of maybe 8%. And then if anything should happen to you, you get this bullet payment being made to your family. So one example is life insurance policy, for example, where you buy a life insurance. If in the next 10 years, anything happens to you, your children, your wife and children get maybe $1 million cedis towards your children's education. It's very important to weigh the two because you don't necessarily know what would happen to you. And per chance, insurance, life insurance especially, is very good if you want to give your family a potential windfall. Now, most insurance companies would pay you interest, which is lower than the interest you could generate yourself if you buy government bonds. But remember, buying the government bond is only giving you your money plus the coupons on the government bond. Insurance gives you a payout, which is over and above how much you've actually contributed. For example, you take car insurance. You insure a car for 100,000 cedis. You pay maybe 3,000 cedis or 5,000 cedis as insurance for the car. You can't compare an annual payment over the next 10 years of 5,000 cedis against a car insurance that if the car gets totally damaged, you get 100,000 cedis payout from the insurance company. Or if the car gets stolen, you get 100,000 cedis payout. It's the same thing with education funds and other funds as well. But please do your research. That I would always tell you. Don't just buy the product. Always compare any investment plan with the risk-free investment option you have, which is your government bond. If your government bond will pay you 18% for 10 years, compare whatever investment decision you are making against that risk-free return, and then you'll be on the right track. Don't just say, oh, I'll earn 8% a year and it's fine. You will be leaving money on the table if you could be earning 18% a year as compared to 8% a year. So that will be the feedback I will give you, Musti, on that question. Any other questions or comments, please?
Hi, Jojo.
Yes,
Can
please
you
go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yes,
Okay,
I can.
so with all that you said, I'm just trying to find out if, let's just say I have never done any of this investment before and I'm deciding to opt for government or corporate bond. I remember you saying we should do more government. Why not the corporate? Let's just say I've not done all the research and all. Why would you suggest government instead of corporate bond?
So government is always called your risk-free rate. I would expect any corporate to give you a risk premium above government bonds. And yes, you are right in comparing. There are some corporate bonds in the market as well. You need to compare the risk of the corporate being able to pay you your money. Because if you give your money to a company, there is no assurance that the company will not collapse. It's similar to keeping your money in Men's Go, or keeping your money as a fixed deposit with a bank that has collapsed, or a savings and loan that is unable to pay you your savings back. Okay. But if you keep your money with the government, worst case scenario, Bank of Ghana can print more cedis to pay you. Okay, that's why it is considered a risk-free rate. So whatever investment you do, you need to compare it with a risk-free rate. That should be your minimum research. But also do research on whatever company you are investing your money in, or whatever corporate bond you want to keep your money into. Do your research first, because you want to ensure that you are not going to put your money where you will not get it back. Remember, your first importance is to protect your principal. Wherever you put your money, you need to ensure that you can get your principal back before you get a certain return on top. If you are not certain of getting your principal, do not put your money in that investment. Okay. Any other questions or comments, please?
Yes, hi. Good evening.
Good evening. Please go ahead.
Yes. Sorry to take you back. On the government bond, same thing on the government bond. I think you mentioned something like, I think you quoted an amount. Let's say I go to any of these banks and request to do these or this government bond. Now, does the amount determine the number of years, or you get to choose the years yourself? And is this something you need to do money? Do you do that like monthly, or it's just once? Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that question. Okay, so government of Ghana has, yes, I got you clearly. I got you clearly. Government of Ghana has different bonds on the market that is sell. Okay, that is on sale. The minimum amount you can invest in any particular bond is 1,000 cedis. You can go to any bank, any financial institution, any savings and loans or assets. Well, savings and loans may not necessarily have the bonds for sale, but any asset manager or brokerage company and make inquiries whether they offer government bonds for sale. Okay. Because the bonds are traded on the market, if you go to Bank A, you may get a price that is different from Bank B. So if you have money, if you have 2 or 3 different bank accounts, contact each of your banks and ask them for the government bonds and the price they are willing to sell. The bonds they have available to sell and the price at which they are willing to sell it. Okay. You do not have to, you are not limited on tenor. You can choose to invest 10,000 cedis in a government bond that is maturing in September. You can choose to invest the same amount in a government bond maturing January next year. You can choose to invest the same amount in a government bond maturing in 2034. Nothing prevents you in terms of tenor. The tenor is subject to your decision. So what the banks will do is they will tell you this for bond A, the yield you earn if you hold it to maturity is 16%. For bond B, it is 17%. All the way to bond Z, it is 20% yield. Okay, and when you go to your bank, you can actually ask them to explain further to you, and they should be in a position to do and give you all the explanations as well. Okay, the amount doesn't matter because you are not limited in amount. So what you can do as well is split your whatever funds you have into different bonds based on when they pay coupons, because the bonds don't pay coupons every month. They pay coupons every 6 months. So you can have a bond that pays coupon in July and January and July every year. You can have a bond that pays coupons in February and August every year, all the way through to a bond that pays in June and December every year. So if per chance you want to receive coupon every month and you have, let's say, 600,000 cedis, you can invest 100,000 cedis in bonds, in 6 different bonds that are paying coupons in January, February, March, April, all the way through to June, so that every month you're earning a little bit of coupon towards your retirement. And that's what people I know who have built towards their retirement have done. So they have different bonds, and on a monthly basis, they are earning a certain coupon. But if your money is not plenty and it's small like me, you can just invest it in one particular bond, and every 6 months you get a small lumpy amount. And then when you get it, if you don't have use of the money, you reinvest it. And that's one thing as well that I would highlight. If you can, as much as possible, always reinvest your returns on your investment. Don't be eager to take that money and spend it today. If you can invest that money and wait an extra 6 months before you spend a little bit of it, you are able to get more value from your investment over time. And that's also very important as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, just checking if there are any further questions. If none, I would hand over to Marketa or Truman. Sorry, Truman, your line is quite bad.
Truman for no good.
Truman, if you can type the question in the chat, it would help. Okay. I have this insurance.
Truman for no good.
Yeah, but let's give him a second, please.
Pressy, don't throw your phone no good. Don't be kind of phone.
Can you hear me?
Music phone.
Can you hear me? Truman, I can't hear you clearly. If you can please type the question in the chat, I'll answer it, okay? Elvis, do you want to ask a question? Please unmute yourself, Elvis. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I was asking about the education fund. Is there any entity like an organization, specifics, something you've tried and you feel like it's okay? That
honestly speaking, I can't put my neck out for any organization because I always advise people to do their independent research. But there are a number of institutions out there that have a number of asset managers out there in the country, like IC Asset Management, Data Bank, SAS, Cal Asset Managers, which is an offshoot of Cal Bank, who can all help you set up an education fund. So I think you need to do a bit of research or talk to your bankers to see how you can go about it. Or better still, you can create it yourself. I don't know which bank you use in Ghana, but some banks allow you to buy bonds from the mobile app. So I know people who are in Hong Kong, Shanghai and the rest, who are able to buy government bonds from who are able to buy government bonds.
Make somebody call Truman and tell us when they think, make it change them.
I think Truman has muted himself now. Okay. So
sorry, I'm listening.
Yeah. So basically, it's better to do it yourself. Actually, own the process. Don't hand it over to someone, because you can never tell whether the person will do it the way you want it to be done. Okay. I think you need to own the process yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? I haven't seen Truman's question in the chat yet. I'll just keep a look out for it. Any further questions, please? Okay, in the absence of any questions, I'll hand over to Makita to say a few words, and then we can close the session.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very, very, very much for participating. I'm very, very happy to see quite a number of people on this platform. Anyway, this is just the first time, and we hope going forward we get, if not half, we get more than the number we have here. Jojo, thank you so much also for making it a point to meet us this evening. It's been insightful. It's been very, very educative. And since now you've been added to the platform, anytime we need any advice in terms of financial help or anything around finances, we'll ensure to contact you. So in the absence of any question, I would say thank you very much once again, everyone, and have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I think the meeting is over now. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you
for coming.
Thank you.
Rebecca, I can see your lovely face. Hey, Uncle Nee.
Hey, Nita, you see your face.
Oh, you can turn on the video.
Turn
on your video so we can see your faces.
Nee, you see your face.
Turn on your video and let's see your faces, please.
Nee, you see your face. Nee,
Miss Arthur, I can see you.
Nee, you see your face.
Yes, I see my face.
Turn on your videos and let's see your faces.
Your face like both roads.
Hello, everyone. Next, we can't see your face.
Oh.
Igwe,
we can't see your face. You see your face.
Sorry, we can't see your face. Please turn on your video. Also, please, we are going to share. We will share the everything that has been said here will be shared on the platform, and we have a YouTube link too. You can click on that link so that in case you miss anything, at least you can refresh your mind also with it. But it would be on the platform, please. Hey, Neo Blissy, I can see you.
Robbie baby.
Hey.
I see you.
I see you. Tata, David, I can see your face.
Mercy, I see you.
Hey, but myself, I don't see myself.
Sandra, I can see your face. Igwe,
I see you.
Bella, I can see your face.
I don't see myself.
I don't see myself.
Why?
Madam President, you see your face.
Don't hurry upon. I can't see your face.
I can't tell I can't see no.
Baby Getty, I can see you.
Brown. But who the brown t-shirt?
Kaka, can I see your face?
No.
Hey, P for both.
Oh,
Hey, Madam President.
P both.
Madam President.
Hey, First Lady
Hey,
President.
Blanco
Atiaje.
P. Blanco P, how are you doing? Yes.
Atiaje, I can see
Governor,
your
why
Hey,
you
face.
waiting
Madam
like
President.
like a
Hey, Madam
goofy?
President.
Please,
That
who
is,
has
you see your
taken my
face.
face? Who has
Please
taken my
wait
face,
for your
please? I
You
item.
can't
see
see
your
my own
face. You
face.
see your face.
Wait for your item 13, please.
Please,
Please
item
wait for
13,
your item
item 13,
13. Please wait
item
for it. He
13.
will bring it
How
round
are you?
right
It will be
now.
a Leonard's wedding.
Me, item 13. We are waiting.
Blanco P,
Item
how
what?
are you?
Item 13.
Brown?
Okay, which one is that?
It's Bobby. Robert.
Yes.
It's Robert.
Blanco P, how are you?
Oh,
Ah,
Rob,
but I can't see my
Daddy,
face.
Rob, baby, I miss you. Ade, what's up with you?
Blanco P,
You're
how are
staying in
you?
one corner like that.
Yo,
Who
my
has stolen my face, crap?
Richard.
Sandy, what's up?
Oh,
Hi, guys.
I dare like I know day.
Hey, so Robert,
how
why
do
is
you
he
take
like
that?
Hey,
that?
where is
Ask
2
the
man?
question.
Where is 2 man?
Is that
Oh,
Sandy?
He
Hey,
go buy new phone for Techo.
Truma, he can't
I
see
say
himself.